1. Legal battle over inhumane conditions at Everglades Detention Center. 2. ACLU condemns Puerto Rico's immigrant detainees being transferred to Alligator Alcatraz. 1. Legal battle over inhumane conditions at Everglades Detention Center. In a bold move that highlights a critical issue in the realm of immigrant rights, advocates have taken legal action against the Trump administration, citing a severe lack of access to legal representation for individuals detained at Florida's infamous Everglades Immigration Detention Center. This facility, hastily erected on a deserted airstrip in the wetlands of Okeechobee, has gained notoriety for its troubling conditions and the treatment of those held within its confines. Often referred to as Alligator Alcatraz, this detention center is constructed from temporary tents, trailers, and chain-link fences topped with barbed wire. It is surrounded by a hostile environment filled with alligators, pythons, mosquitoes, and swampy terrain, making it susceptible to flooding. Currently, the lawsuit indicates that over 700 individuals are being held at this facility. The legal action is spearheaded by detainees at the center, representing a broader class of individuals, alongside various legal service providers and law firms, including Florida Keys Immigration, Sanctuary of the South, U.S. Immigration Law Council, and others. They are supported by the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, ACLU of Florida, and Americans for Immigrant Justice. The lawsuit challenges the government's restrictions on access to legal counsel, which have severely hindered detainees' ability to file necessary legal documents for their release. The administration has prohibited in-person legal visits, as well as any confidential phone or video communications, and has obstructed the exchange of written documents. These actions are seen as violations of the First and Fifth Amendment rights of the detainees, as well as infringing upon the First Amendment rights of the legal organizations and law firms representing them. Reports from detainees and visiting members of Congress paint a grim picture of the conditions at the facility. They describe extreme heat, an overwhelming presence of mosquitoes, flooding within the tents, inadequate access to clean water, malfunctioning toilets, with detainees reportedly forced to unclog them by hand, insufficient food, and violations of religious freedoms. Eunice Cho, a senior counsel with the ACLU's National Prison Project and the lead attorney in this case, stated, "This facility opens another dark chapter in our nation's history. Its very existence is predicated on our country's basest impulses, and shows the danger of unchecked governmental authority when combined with unbridled hate. It represents an attack on common decency, and in this case, its treatment of detained people is also unlawful. The U.S. Constitution does not allow the government to simply lock people away without any ability to communicate with counsel or to petition the court for release from custody. The government may not trample on these most fundamental protections for people held in its custody." The complaint details instances where multiple attorneys have attempted to gain access to their clients at the facility, only to be met with armed members of the Florida National Guard and state police at the checkpoint. These officials have indicated that requests for attorney-client meetings would be communicated to the facility, yet hours later, lawyers are informed that no in-person visits will be permitted. Moreover, the government has failed to provide any clear guidelines on how detainees and their counsel can conduct confidential phone calls. The email address given by Florida state officials for requesting attorney calls has proven ineffective, and any documents attorneys wish to review with clients must undergo scrutiny before being allowed. Bacardi Jackson, the executive director of the ACLU of Florida, remarked, "What's happening here is not just a policy failure, it's a moral one. The state has hastily erected a costly and deadly shadow prison in the middle of the Everglades during hurricane season to warehouse human beings, stripping them of due process and dignity, cutting them off from their families and legal counsel, intentionally putting their lives in danger, and leaving them to suffer in silence. This is how rights are erased. But the Constitution doesn't disappear in the Everglades. No amount of armed guards or government spin can shield this facility from legal scrutiny. We will use every tool at our disposal to end this cruel experiment and defend the rights of every person trapped inside of this unconstitutional abomination. Sui Chung, Executive Director of Americans for Immigrant Justice, added, "Access to counsel empowers immigrants, and all people, to participate in their own legal defense, which has irreversible and lifelong consequences. The conditions inside this facility are deeply concerning and paint a stark picture of the disregard for the well-being of individuals in custody. Such a facility, operating in near secret, and denying fundamental rights, is a stain on our justice system and represents a threat to American values and our recognition of human rights." The lawsuit also aims to compel the government to provide timely and accurate information regarding the location of individuals held at the facility, and to ensure that they have confidential access to their attorneys, both in person and via telephone. Katie Blankenship, founding partner of Sanctuary of the South, expressed her concerns, stating, "This facility is a desecration to the Big Cypress National Preserve and a violation of Miccosukee and Seminole tribal land. Not only have we repeatedly been denied access to current and prospective clients, but after waiting for 3 hours at the site, it became clear that there is no plan or process to ensure any access to counsel or due process for the immigrants being neglected and abused there. We must act now before hurricane season is in full swing, which will only exacerbate the already deadly conditions for those being held there incommunicado." For more details, you can view the full complaint here at https://www.aclu.org/c-m-b-christie-noam?complaint. 2. ACLU condemns Puerto Rico's immigrant detainees being transferred to Alligator Alcatraz. Imagine being locked behind white canvas tents on an abandoned airstrip, with only swamps teeming with snakes and hungry alligators separating you from freedom. But here's where it gets controversial. The American Civil Liberties Union chapter in Puerto Rico is publicly blasting the U.S. government for sending immigrant detainees to this new facility, dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, built in just 1 week in South Florida's Everglades. And this is the part most people miss. Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory, has no permanent immigration jails capable of housing people long-term, so many detainees, particularly migrants from the Dominican Republic, are shipped to the mainland for processing and detention. On Friday, the ACLU of Puerto Rico issued a news release reporting fresh allegations that those transfers to Alligator Alcatraz involve serious rights violations and dehumanizing treatment. Annette Martinez, executive director of the ACLU of Puerto Rico, doesn't mince words. In an interview, she condemned not only President Trump's broader plan to build more detention centers, but also the rapid rise of Alligator Alcatraz itself. "This isn't even a detention center. It feels more like a torture facility," she said in Spanish. "People go in, and they can't leave." That warning is now part of a lawsuit the ACLU filed this week against the Department of Homeland Security. 4 detainees and their lawyers argue that federal officials have blocked legal counsel from seeing clients held at Alligator Alcatraz. One of those plaintiffs, Cuban national Michael Borrego Fernandez, describes heart-rending conditions: detainees told they get only 1 rushed meal a day, denied daily showers, and confined around the clock in caged tents. He also alleges physical assaults by guards and a troubling absence of medical care. Unsurprisingly, DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin has firmly rejected these accusations, asserting that no lawbreakers in the history of human civilization have been treated better than illegal aliens in the United States. Yet the reality on the ground paints a starkly different picture. Roughly 700 men and women are now living in metal cages under flimsy white canopies in one of America's most hurricane-prone wetlands. Former detainees and relatives speak of chronic water shortages, intermittent electricity, and clouds of mosquitoes that sting relentlessly. One Dominican migrant, picked up last month in Puerto Rico, spent 2 weeks at Alligator Alcatraz before speaking to El Nuevo Dia. He said migrants with serious health conditions were denied medical treatment, and that everyone struggled with scant food rations and barely any access to showers. For decades, Puerto Rico was viewed as a refuge compared to other U.S. jurisdictions. But under Trump's aggressive push for mass deportations, ICE raids on the island have surged, shattering its sanctuary reputation and forcing migrants into ever harsher enforcement zones. What do you think? Is Alligator Alcatraz a necessary tool to enforce immigration laws, or has the U.S. government crossed a line into cruel and inhumane treatment? Share your views and join the debate in the comments below. Report by Nicole Acevedo. Contributions from Hatzel Vila.